Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With your 2026 NXT Great American Bash instant analysis. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, somewhat unexpectedly here Sunday night, as it was not the original plan to provide any type of instant analysis as soon as this show went off the air, because NXT Great American Bash, TNA Slammiversary, and AEW Forbidden Door were all airing on the same day. The original plan was to do an NXT and AEW show at some point Monday afternoon, and then I was going to save TNA until later in the week, most likely Thursday, where we would break it down along with the regular week in NXT and AEW. But once NXT Great American Bash ended, and I realized I wrote so many freaking notes on this show that if I combined this with an AEW Forbidden Door show, like, I don't know how long it would go, possibly 2 hours plus. I figured, you know what? Let's pause for a moment. Let's reconsider our plans. So what's going to happen on this episode is we are going to have your NXT Great American Bash instant analysis. We're also going to discuss Saturday's AAA show, specifically because a variety of things that happen on that show directly relate to NXT and an announcement that was made as the show progressed. So we're going to tackle NXT and AAA here. On Monday, the idea is to do AEW and TNA in an episode, and that will completely clear the deck for our WWE episode on Tuesday, and then our regular NXT and AEW episode on Thursday. So that is the plan moving forward. That is why we are doing this unexpected, unplanned instant analysis Sunday night. As we get into this, allow Silver King to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about the fight.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show on YouTube. You can listen to the program. You can watch full-length video interviews. Link in our profiles. You can join our free Slack channel, subscribe to the podcast, and much more. Find us across the board on social media at Getting Overcast. Now, because Silver King is operating this instant analysis solo, we will not be cracking open a cold one. Instead, we're just going to get right into the action. NXT Great American Bash instant analysis. Now, considering this was held in the WWE Performance Center, there's not that much to say about the aesthetics of the show, other than the ropes being red, white, and blue, which was necessary. There was nothing added to the stage. As I said when the show was announced, even if WWE wanted to keep it in Orlando for some reason, I am not sure why they didn't simply use a different venue, such as Full Sail. Just at a minimum, they easily could have sold a couple thousand tickets, and there are plenty of other venues in the area to make it even more unique. The goal should be for these to feel different from TV episodes, especially considering this was the debut on the CW. But at the end of the day, it felt like an extended episode of NXT television, largely because it was on the CW and the way the show was formatted. There were multiple early production issues, including dual audio feeds during the countdown. The first minute of Great American Bash on Netflix, if you were watching VPN or internationally, it was actually footage from SmackDown last Friday. There were 3 different cutouts during the opening match. Even worse, we had wondered, what is the commercial break situation going to look like? Hoping that NXT would only go to break on the CW between matches, which is exactly what WWE did with NBC and now with Peacock during Saturday night's main event. Well, guess what?
No.
While the in-match breaks were all picture-in-picture, they nevertheless happened early and right in the middle of bouts, despite this being called a premium live event. So these are effectively 3-hour TV specials and not PLEs. Now, Netflix was commercial-free with ongoing action. So yes, NordVPN.com/gettingover will be the move for these two. But that should not need to be the case. These should be operating like Saturday night's main event. There's no excuse for it. Not even the main event was commercial free. The least they could have done would have been carved out the opening match and final match as commercial free, and then said, okay, but the rest of them, you're going to get picture-in-picture breaks. No, they couldn't even give us that. It was incredibly frustrating. Now, as we get into this card, which of course we will break down in order of importance, not in order of delivery, there are a couple of things that happened in AAA this week that in one way or another have to do with what transpired at NXT Great American Bash. We're going to cover one of them here right before we get into the main event of the show. And then we'll talk about approximately 3 others after the last match, but before we wrap up the entire affair. So the match that directly had to do with the main event of Great American Bash was Lola Vice retaining her NXT championship over La Hiedra in AAA as expected. Las Toxicas interfered late. Vice kicked out of their attack. La Catalina saved, connecting with a massive spear after running down the ramp. Lola then caught Hiedra with her spinning back fist for the win. The heels again attacked after the bell, so someone named Lady Shoddy returned to save. This was not an overly remarkable match, but it was stressed by commentary how Vice showed a lot of guts defending the title there, despite needing to do so again one day later. Now, the show was obviously pre-taped, so Vice was not legitimately wrestling twice in 24 hours. But in kayfabe, she entered this worn down, having taken punishment and defended her title, quote-unquote, 24 hours earlier. I did not realize that was part of the booking. It might have resulted in a different prediction for the match or just a different consideration when discussing who would ultimately win. But this was the main event of NXT, Lola Vice defending the NXT Championship against Kendall Gray. Kendall and Ren Sinclair had a meeting of the minds backstage, each confident that the other would win their respective matches, with Ren QCC exiting stronger than ever. And you'll remember on the go-home show, they promised a double layer cake should both of them win. So perhaps there will be some chowing down on Tuesday if Gray ultimately prevailed. This main event of the show, as I will detail later, it could have started with 35 minutes left in the program. Instead, it started with about 20 minutes left. Kendall's family was in the crowd. Gray wore Kurt Angle-inspired gear for the second time. Vice looked like she was wearing Yankees pinstripes. Kalani Jordan ran out for no reason whatsoever, with Sinclair immediately stopping her 5 minutes into the match. That led to a commercial. Lola landed 2 hip attacks out of the break, plus a high-angle suplex. Kendall reversed a German suplex, hitting 2 toss slams before each reversed the other into multiple Germans. Gray took a spinning back kick to the midsection off a springboard, but when she took a seated senton off the apron, she rolled through it into an ankle lock submission. Kendall then jumped onto the barricade, leaping a good 6 feet to hit Shades of Gray ringside. Lola reversed an ankle lock before each prevented an armbar. Vice then countered the feint back elbow into a rear naked choke, which Gray escaped and reversed. Kendall missed a turnaround springboard moonsault and then got kicked in the temple and put into a guillotine. She tried to exit with a Northern Lights bomb. Lola moved that into a triangle choke. Vice then nailed Gray with the spinning back fist, but Kendall bounced off the ropes and hit her spinning back elbow for a double cover and a double false finish. To say business picked up in that moment would be an understatement. But just moments later, Kendall ended another counter sequence with Shades of Gray springing off the ropes to somewhat suddenly win the NXT Championship. I say that primarily considering it was not the crescendo of the match. It was not the peak, but rather coming down from it on the other side. I thought because that was happening, this might go 3 or 4 more minutes. They had enough time in the show, but it was just a bunch of strike exchanges. And then she avoided, I think, a lariat, jumped onto the ropes and did the finisher. Sinclair ran out to celebrate with Gray, who embraced her friend, and then got cheered by her family to end the show. This was a tale of 2 matches. What happened before the break and then after the break. Before, standard wrestling. After was some top-tier grappling, mat work, reversals, and counters. Not for NXT, not for women, in wrestling, period. I'm going to say this again later, but Kendall and Lola are legitimate fight forever opponents, and you should see this rematched at some point in a big spot on a main roster PLE, like, 5 years from now. Outside of the runtime, I'd have started this 5 minutes earlier and put all of it at the end, that extra time of that long counter sequence. Outside of that, it was relatively flawless. You will hear people calling it the women's match of 2026 through 6 months. I'm not sure I'm there, but it was outstanding work. It's important not to get lost, by the way, in the Kendall Gray of all of this. Yes, Gray is an upper echelon wrestler who has a legitimate chance to be the best bell-to-bell product that North America has ever produced. That is her ceiling. But fully focusing on her, it does a disservice to Vice, who has improved so damn much over the last year that this was not a 1A, 1B match. It was two 1As going head-to-head. Lola is main roster ready, and I would not be surprised if you see her on SmackDown or possibly doing a long exclusive stint in AAA before moving up. Vice is far more ready for the main roster now than Sol Ruca was a couple months ago, just comparatively. And while she would be expected to slot onto the SmackDown side because she's dating Damian Priest, I'm not sure whether that factors until engagement or marriage. The need for women is on Raw, not SmackDown, especially with that show getting shortened to 2 hours. I just wanted to make sure that Lola got her just due. I would still wait a few months on calling her up. There's really not a rush, but I digress. Kendall is a more than deserving champion. And as I said at the time, I'm glad WWE waited to strap her up until a one-on-one situation, didn't do it in the triple threat, didn't do it immediately after the Iron Survivor Challenge. People were so upset they didn't crown Kendall Gray. There was a reason. They wanted a transitional champion in Lola Vice who deserved the title and did a great job with the title, and now they flipped it to Vice at a key point of the year. Look, Kendall still needs a lot of seasoning on the mic. And if I had the book, I probably would have held this off a few more months. But there has been a lot of internal momentum behind Gray recently, and it is not at all surprising that they chose to do the title change in this spot on this show with the American aesthetic and her amateur wrestling background. One of the coolest parts of watching NXT is seeing these wrestlers go from inexperienced neophytes to like burgeoning main roster superstars. And like what happened with Obafemi, what we are witnessing with Kendall Gray right now, it's literally the beginning of a career path that is not going to impact WWE. It's going to impact the industry. I'm just realizing now I didn't provide a grade for the match. 4.5 stars A. Perhaps it goes higher on rewatch. I'm holding off due to my comments about the finishing sequence and the opening into that first commercial. If this was 22 minutes uninterrupted, it's an A+ match. There's not even a question about it, but that's not what it was. And I'm hesitant to go that high on it without rewatching it while I'm not taking notes. But 4.5 stars A, the worthy main event, glad it was put in that spot, and the match of the night without question. NXT Championship, Tony D'Angelo defending against Naraku. This opened the show. D'Angelo's eye and head was fully bandaged, stemming from the fireball attack. Tony D speared Naraku through the crow's nest base literally 10 seconds into the match. Naraku frequently went after the injured eye whenever D'Angelo gained momentum, and Tony D had to stop the referee from calling off the match 2 minutes in. Naraku hit his STO finisher vertically into the apron. Vic Joseph missed the call. Then he bit D'Angelo's hand during a crossface and chucked him through a portion of the ringside barricade. Tony D followed with a powerbomb off the ropes and a catch power slam, wrestling Wildman style with his hair all frizzed out. He then completely no-sold a German suplex, like stupid fighting spirit style, and immediately hit dead to rights to win in 10 minutes, with those watching in the United States missing 1/3 of an NXT championship match due to commercial break. This was either the second or third shortest match on the entire show. And it was rolling along so much better than the finish and the allotted time it received. Like, it was going hot after the break, and I got to assume if you were watching this from home live, you were probably thinking, oh, this has another like 7 to 10 minutes to go. It's just starting to roll along. And then it just ended suddenly after a no-sell. There was no build up to the finish whatsoever, just a move and a 1-2-3. I'm completely dumbfounded that an NXT title match with a hyped challenger and former IWGP heavyweight champion ended squeaky clean 2 minutes after returning from commercial, and the match in totality received 10 minutes. This was not even substantial enough to be a TV main event for weekly NXT, let alone a premium live event match. It was absurdly anticlimactic. I was dumbfounded and immensely disappointed when this ended so suddenly. I don't even know how to grade it because I did love what I got and I was able to watch it without commercial. But the commercial did happen, and it ended 2 minutes later. I'm going to give it 3.25 stars B due to the hard-hitting nature, the energy. The work was really high quality, but it wasn't allowed to complete itself. And none of this criticism is even considering the booking of having Naraku get completely thrown aside as a challenger, losing so quickly to a dude wrestling with one eye. That's like when MJF beat Jay White on one leg. How the hell are we supposed to take Naraku seriously now? If Naraku is getting an immediate call up to the main roster after this quick stint, okay, I guess I can understand the result. I still don't understand the time. I still don't understand the finish, but at least I understand why it was clean. But if he is still on this brand Tuesday and moving forward, which we have no reason to believe he will not be, this was a massive miss and a horrid start to the show creatively. How am I ever supposed to buy this guy as a legitimate challenger when he lights a fireball in D'Angelo's face, blinds him, attacks it all match, and still loses clean in 10 minutes?
Come on, Oos. It's a joke, right? It's a joke, Oos. You ribbing me?
You could argue it was the worst part of Great American Bash. North American Championship, Zarya defending against Tatum Paxley. This was second on the card. Tatum was dressed as some kind of anime figure that had a bunch of people really excited. I mean, she looked incredible, but I just didn't get the reference, so it didn't do anything for me. There was a strange tug of war with the belt at the start. Paxley trapped Zarya in the apron and delivered some offense, only to get thrown over the barricade. She emerged by leaping into a sleeper hold, but Zarya squashed her, falling backwards ringside. Tatum banged Zarya's head off the top of the ring post, following with a superplex, only to get speared upon standing. Zarya appeared stuck in a tree of woe, but when Paxley went for the coast-to-coast, Zarya powered herself up, and they did a brawl on the apron. When she tried an F5, I presume to the ringside area, Paxley countered into one of the single best apron sunset flip power bombs I have seen in years. There was no pause, no readjusting, one motion. Tatum grabbed the title off the platform, avoided a subsequent belt shot from Zarya, and then hit Cemetery Drive, her finisher, both outside and back inside for a shocking false finish that was kicked out of a little bit too early, actually. Zarya avoided a third with Paxley rolling an F5 down into a cover, but she kicked out, speared Tatum, hit the F5 for another false finish, with Tatum laughing as Zarya was laying over her body dumbfounded. So Zarya, not knowing what else to do, just starts beating Tatum in the back of the head and neck with her forearm. She pulls her up by the arms and does a nasty curb stomp. And Tatum was already knocked out before that even happened. So now she's dead weight. Zarya throws her on her shoulder, hits one more F5, retains the title in 14 minutes. This was a badly needed change in momentum on the show after that massively disappointing opener. Another frustrating commercial break, but they went for more than 7 minutes after it ended, not 2, like the first match, and that was important. While portions of this were better than the first effort, the crowd was surprisingly tepid after the first false finish when it should have gotten more riled up. Booking-wise, this was the perfect swan song for Tatum, who is leaving NXT just like Blake Monroe did before her, with consecutive losses, or so I thought. She looked great and deserving of, possibly winning the title back. She hit 2 finishers on Zarya, who similarly looked incredible and super strong too, kicking out of those at 2.5, which should have been 2.9. The idea being the title means so much to her, it's going to take a lot more than that to put her away. Even the finish after that was really smart. It was not a simple F5 and a win, which is basically what happened in the men's match, but an F5, a false finish, more counters, and an ending befitting of Paxley's character, literally needing to get knocked out cold by a behemoth in order to lose. These are fight forever opponents, just like Lola and Kendall, and I cannot wait to see them in a huge PLE match years to come from now. Definite A. I'm at 4.25 stars. I could see upgrading this on rewatch as well. It carried everything on this show until the main event. You could argue it should have been later in the show because of how mediocre most everything else was on the program. Tatum was interviewed backstage after the match, saying she feels empty and sad, having let everyone down by losing the North American Championship opportunity. Lonnie interrupted her, talking shit about Paxley being pathetic and always failing when it counts, whereas she has never had an NXT title match despite having accomplished so much more than Paxley. Tatum slugged her in the face, leading to a pull-apart brawl. Well, I guess she won't be on Raw this Monday night after all, and it seems like that was not her swan song match, which is incredibly unfortunate. This does feel unnecessary. Still, I presume Paxley will put over Jordan this Tuesday and then appear on Monday Night Raw in 2 weeks. The only reason to do this match is if she's not getting called up immediately this week, and you want to try to put Jordan over because she's most likely going to be the next number one contender for the NXT title, and she needs to get some wins back. As far as Lonnie goes, her character straight up sucks. If you are going to be a whiner and complainer, it needs to be entertaining, ideally funny. She is a child throwing a tantrum. That is not entertaining television. Not when you're an adult woman, and not when you're someone who should be evil to a degree at this point. Like, she has almost gone so far beyond heel, it's the point of parody. And just, man, she's so good in the ring, and she's toned down her Sol Ruca-like early proclivity for springboards and athleticism and not focusing on mat wrestling. She is now a terrific bell-to-bell wrestler. She has it all. The character in the promo, it's still not there after all this time. I don't know if they're ever going to hit it. Maybe she needs to be in a tag team. That might be the move. The other North American Championship, Miles Bourne defending against Tavian Heights. This was effectively the co-main event based on placement. They literally went head-to-head early, and Bourne hit one of the best moves of the match with a catch power slam while he was hanging over the middle rope inside. You could actually argue it was the best move of the match. They did a planned fall off the top rope ringside that was eerily similar to the botch that injured Kota Ibushi. Heights delivered a bit of a throat punch later in the match before dumping Bourne over the top rope. There was solid groundwork from both guys. Everything they did was relatively smooth. It just wasn't overly exciting. Heights caught Bourne with a full release belly-to-belly suplex ringside, plus an electric chair and a truly awful regular splash back inside. Truly awful. We have seen 3 of the worst ever splashes in the month of June alone. And that's saying something because Gunther did the second worst one on Saturday night. Literally a minute after coming back from a second commercial break, Bourne countered in midair, hitting Bourne again, and retained the title. After the bell, Bourne put over Heights, saying that he pushed him to be a better champion. He said Tavian will be a champion soon, just not on that night against him. Miles put over his 4-month reign, promising he would hold the title for a long time. Not what I would consider a satisfying match. It got enough time. It was running well enough. But the 2 commercial breaks, the botch in the finishing sequence, and the sudden finish, both in the match flow and in reality after returning from commercial, they were all frustrating. Ending with a handshake after it had appeared that Heights was set to turn heel was lackluster too. It was another instance, and I'm going to repeat this, where something could have happened on the show but did not. Like, nothing exciting happened on this show outside of the 2 women's matches. This could have been a TV main event. That's probably what it should have been. 3.5 stars B. I might even be generous there. I might have to downgrade that a 1/4 star on rewatch. Saquon Sugars fought Dion Lennox. Sugars debuted a new entrance package as this was his first standard singles match outside of Dark State. It worked visually with neon lights and candy iconography, just given his last name. I did not get a solid handle on the theme. I need to listen to it again. It came across really low energy, like with Jada Parker, but I do want to get a better listen. What was familiar to me was the intro, which was similar to his independent theme. It's something that I think he likes on his way to the ring. Saquon impressed early with a nice counter neckbreaker before Dark State came out selling their respective injuries while distracting. Lennox caught Sugars with a perfect spinebuster after the break. Saquon answered with a nice leapfrog-style leg drop, only to get caught by Dion on the top rope, taking a nasty spine-first backbreaker into the turnbuckle extension, plus a turnover slam back inside for a false finish. Saquon then got his head taken off with 2 lariats. He powered up to his feet first, stumbling all the way around the ring. They botched what appeared to be an inverted razor's edge as Dion just fell off his shoulders. So Sugars shrugged, wasted no time, leapt to the top rope, and hit a backwards blind frog splash pretty deep into the ring to get the win. Dark State immediately attacked after the bell with a twisting pop-up powerbomb, and Lennox hit him in the ribs with the bat multiple times, front and back. Dark State stood tall at the end. This was not a particularly great match. Lennox simply could not keep up with Sugars' skill. That said, it was rolling along decently hot until they were unable to execute that planned finish. Credit to Saquon having the veteran presence of mind to make the best out of a bad situation, but it still tanked the end of the match. The attack afterward was sensible. Those guys want revenge, but it was also incredibly ho-hum because we have seen it so many times before, and Sugars just beat their leader clean. What exactly is the benefit to keeping this going? I presume Saquon will recruit a couple guys, maybe OTM, to get his back. They finished Dark State for good. But this should have been the end, with Sugars firmly moving into the mid-card or even upper mid-card with the North American title picture. The grade here is extremely tough. It got more run than other matches that deserved extra time when it did not. If the finish had been executed properly, perhaps I would feel different. I'm at 3.25 stars B. Sugars was clearly the star, and hopefully this is just the start of a huge elevation for him. Shiloh Hill fought Tristan Angels. Hill slid under the ring as avoidance strategy while Angels was on offense. The lights turned out when he dragged Tristan under the ring with him, and somehow there was a camera there that showed Tristan answering a ringing iPhone. I think it said, "The fog is coming," a bunch of times. And then Shiloh appeared behind Tristan in a Jason-style hockey mask, trying to take him out with a rear naked choke. So Angels escaped using a wrench, only for after he escaped, Hill to already be standing there behind him. The referee apparently did not give a shit to do a count out, even though Angels was under the ring for 20 seconds and Hill was clearly standing in full view ringside. Angels did a Samoa Joe avoidance spot for a leap off the steel steps. Then he dragged them to the middle of the apron and chucked Hill into the ropes, hanging him up twice. Shiloh stuck his tooth in Tristan's mouth and hit a real nice Liger bomb inside, plus a standing 540 senton ringside. I believe it's a 540. Hill ran up the steps to spear Angels as he re-entered the ring, but he got caught flying with an anti-air code breaker. Shiloh ultimately hit an avalanche version of his Whisper of the Beast to get the win. In a post-match interview, he said he might not be pretty, perfect, or polished, but he doesn't need that to win. There was some nice work here, soiled by 2 commercial breaks, slowing down a premium match and the incredibly dumb spot under the ring. Hill was the right winner. This probably could have been better without the absurdity had it been more straightforward. Again, something that just belonged on television. 3.25 stars B. I might downgrade it a quarter star as well on rewatch. And lastly, match-wise, the Speed Championship, Ren Sinclair defending against Ariana Grace. There was a whole interview with Sinclair on the Countdown Show ahead of a match with a 5-minute time limit and no real feud going into it. Ren did well as usual because she's great at this, but it was such a ridiculous scenario for them to do an interview for this match when you consider it. The most valuable part was Sinclair saying she hates not being by Gray's side as her best friend, but she wanted to remove herself from potentially impacting her championship chase. In the match, Ariana was thematically dressed with the entirety of Birthright ringside. They got dual chants in the final 2 minutes, but Ren's were louder. Sinclair hit a double underhook suplex at the 1-minute mark, but Charlie Dempsey distracted her. Ariana played possum with a small package, but Ren kicked out. Sinclair followed with a helicopter flapjack and the final wrench to win via submission with less than 15 seconds remaining. The right winner, maybe Grace's best match to date. There was nothing wrong with it, but given the allotted time and the distraction, it had an extremely limited ceiling. I usually don't even grade these because they're under 5 minutes. I'll give you a 2.75 stars C+, and that's not any denigration on either of them. It was just a short match. If they had another 5 minutes, the way Grace was wrestling, and we know Sinclair is great, I mean, who knows how high this could have gone. It was actually legitimately entertaining, and I'm not even going to play the fetch, drop of stop trying to make speed happen. It's not going to happen. I still believe that. But on this show, in this moment with these two, it was totally fine. Now, before we get into a bunch of random segments that happened on Great American Bash, I have some context to provide from this week's AAA. Now, it turns out we're going to go over the whole episode here. We already covered 1 segment. There were 4 total on the show. 2 of them directly have to do with NXT, and 1 of them does not. But since I'm doing 3/4 of the show, I might as well cover that as well. So 3 quick notes from AAA, and then back to NXT. There was a legitimately awesome video package for Los Perros del Mal that opened the show. It seems like this incarnation may be a legitimately evil faction. Frustrating not to get more follow-up on the episode, but Perros do seem to have emerged as the power that has been taking out each member of Psycho Circus one by one over the last few months. Psycho Clown rounded his troops and questioned them, asking who attacked them. All 3 explained they were attacked from behind, so they didn't know. Clown assumed that meant Pagano was the attacker, so they charged backstage to confront him, only to find Pagano laid out and literally bleeding from his mouth. Clown immediately apologized to his brother, who accepted, before he noticed a message written in blood on the mirror telling all of them that he is next. That's why it makes sense for Perros to be the attackers, as it is real tough to imagine there being another heel or stable that's going to be introduced doing something like this. Rey Mysterio, in his latest press briefing, said he was surprised by Pedros appearing. Carnal, you're the general manager. Did you not sign them? Do you not have a roster listed in front of you? Clearly, they're signed to the company. He further said the former world champion he signed will appear on TV next week. El Hijo del Vikingo will defend his Latin American championship in NXT. And El Fiscal will fight Abismo Negro again, though he did not mention a particular stipulation for that match, which definitely needs a stipulation. That cannot be a normal match. Also, Galeno beat Mecha Wolf as he continued building a resume before fighting Omos, who distracted by entering during the match. The referee tried to count at one point while one of Wolf's shoulders wasn't even down. Galeno impressed again. It was a much slower match with a larger opponent, so it did not hit the same as his prior bout, though his Galeno special finisher was nice. Back to NXT. Robert Stone met with Vanity Project in his office, all of them talking shit back and forth until Stone informed Jackson Drake that he would be fighting Mason Rook, and Swipe Right are defending their NXT tag team titles against El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. and Galeno. Now, if any of you watch AAA, you know there is no world in which Vanity should retain their titles over these dudes. Galeno is an absolute monster in his own right, and neither of them should be taking the fall here. So I presume that's going to be a disqualification. Why they didn't use Money Machine in this spot, I cannot tell you. Confusing decision. Nikita Lyons, Carmen Petrovic, and Layla Diggs later commiserated with Natty backstage, putting her over and receiving equal praise back. Natty specifically mentioned Carmen being part of Los Perros del Mal. Natty was stuck on Jada Parker being soft. She kept mentioning it. Layla thought, hey, maybe we can give Jada a break, but Natty was focused on Carmen handling business against her on Tuesday. EK Prosper then met with Stone, saying he wanted another shot at Keanu Carver, given the post-match attack. Stone denied him, saying he can't get that match because he is getting the championship opportunity against El Hijo del Vikingo for the AAA Latin American Championship. Carver later confronted Hank and Tank, who were excited about the opportunity for Prosper. He shoved a security guard into one of them, who crashed off the stage through a table. The real takeaway is that these segments and multiple cut-ins to Kevin Owens on a stage in the NXT parking lot at a tailgate party literally stole time away from, the wrestling part of the premium live event wrestling show. If they had conceptualized these segments as ways to fit in extra commercials without putting them during matches, for example, you run a 15-minute match, you do a commercial, you do 2 quick segments that last 3 minutes, and then you run another commercial, right? If they had done that, Silver King is not complaining about them at all. I like when there are backstage segments at premium live events that advance a story and get you ready for television. But these segments aired in full. They literally took TV time away from the wrestling. So while parts of the matches were in picture-in-picture breaks, this stuff aired in full.
So dumb.
This is what should have happened during the breaks. Picture-in-picture, with the full segments then posted on social media later so that the audience could see what was happening. Oh, I'm curious about that. What's Vanity Project doing? Oh, I'll go check on social media. That would allow matches to happen uninterrupted, or at least mostly uninterrupted. There was one point in the show where a match got 2 commercial breaks, but after it ended, there were 2 whole backstage segments that aired before the next commercial. Why would you do that pacing-wise? It's shit like this that makes me wonder what the people in charge are thinking. No one wants a dumb parking lot segment with a stupid radio host. And I love Kevin Owens. I love him. He did not add anything to this show. No one wants that, or Natty talking to a bunch of neophytes getting full time when they could instead be getting 3 uninterrupted additional minutes of full screen wrestling. The truth is likely that WWE failed in its mission to secure their expected level of media rights for the NXT PLEs. You'll remember I told you they were trying to sell those in the AAA shows separately in a package. We thought Peacock might get it or Netflix might take it. And ultimately, clearly in the United States at least, they were forced to settle on the CW. But not pushing for the matches in their deal to be commercial free, at least the main event matches, the opener and the final match, it's absolutely asinine. There was nothing premium about this show from a presentation standpoint. In fact, it was anything but premium. And that is exactly the problem with Great American Bash and potentially all of these NXT quote-unquote PLEs moving forward. So that concludes the wrap-up. Let's get to the grade, our final grade for NXT Great American Bash. Contextually, I was at a 92 A- going into the show from the pre-show expectation grade. As far as Great American Bash, it was incredibly formulaic for the most part. All 6 full matches went to commercial after 3 to 4 minutes. The breaks interrupting matches were maddening. And it was part of everything just feeling like Mickey Mouse to a degree. Running in the WWE Performance Center was extremely bland. A small venue with a small crowd, not a unique atmosphere. The crowd energy seemed notably low, especially compared to your weekly NXT TV tapings. Why would it be so different? Because it's a Sunday night? There was a ton of wasted time with backstage segments that could have been better placed, as I mentioned a moment ago. The deck was cleared for the main event to start with 35 minutes left in the show. It started with 19 minutes left. There was literally 15 minutes wasted in what could have been match time. They did video packages, previews for TV, a dumb segment in the parking lot, and for no reason whatsoever, French commentary clips for matches that happened earlier. Why? Why are you showing French commentary at the Great American Bash in the United States? You cannot tell me that makes a shred of sense. Most of the matches were mediocre with predictable outcomes and 0 surprises, 0 debuts. There was 1 post-match attack. Outside of the tentpole women's matches, there was nothing on the show that lifted the energy of the crowd. The vast majority of the event could have been an email. Again, beyond those 2 matches, which carried the night, nothing else on the card could have even been considered premium or worthy of being on a PLE. But those 2 women's matches were on the card, and they were both outstanding. How much that rising tide lifts the rest of the boat, it's really tough to parse because there was so much disappointment for me on the night, even if nothing happened that you could specifically say was bad. It was just a lot of disappointment and womp womp and mediocreness. I don't even know if that's a word. So if I was at a 92 A- coming in, yeah, I got, man, it's really tough to parse this. I'm going to say 88 B+. And if you did not have those 2 women's matches, you're probably looking at a B- show. But both of them were so incredibly good, booked perfectly, wrestled well, the right winners in the respective matches, almost flawless in execution, that was enough of a rising tide to lift the rest of the boat to a B+. But I can't go higher than that. And coming into this, I had a greater expectation. I was at a 92 for Great American Bash. I was at a 90 for Night of Champions. Shockingly, Night of Champions exceeded expectations and this fell below. It's crazy. By the way, the WWE Night of Champions instant analysis is already in the podcast feed. In case you missed it, make sure you listen to it. And I'll just repeat, Monday we'll talk AEW Forbidden Door, TNA Slammiversary, and then Tuesday we'll take a second look at WWE Night of Champions. Before we leave, they did make an announcement. The next NXT PLE will be Sunday, August 30th, back-to-back with an unnamed AAA show. It's airing in the afternoon in Texas. So WWE is putting it up directly against AEW All In. And all I can do is shake my head. It does not make a shred of sense to sacrifice these shows against AEW's biggest event of the entire year. These will not move the needle at all. It would have been okay if they aired in the evening because All In is happening during the day. It's in London. So it ends at, I don't know the exact time, let's say 6, right? 7. You start one of these at 7, you run from 7 to 11. And if you're WWE and you're looking at competition, you can quote unquote steal the momentum of the night and make the final wrestling headlines on Sunday your own. Why you would air it concurrently, it's frustrating for your viewers who want to watch both. And you're not taking any market share from these guys. Like, I'm not suggesting that AEW does what some people claim it does, but anyone who's going to watch All In is not going to say, you know what? NXT and AAA are free, so I might as well watch that instead. No, they're going to watch the biggest event of the year for the promotion that they watch. So this is pure competition. That's all it is. Running a show at noon on a Sunday in August after, I want to say, the first college football Saturday of the year. It might be the second, but I believe it's the first. It's just a horrible decision on the back of a bunch of horrible decisions they've made with NXT from a premium live event standpoint, at least, as evidenced at the Great American Bash. So, we'll talk more about this on Thursday, our next go around covering NXT on that show, also AEW. But between now and then, I'll reiterate once more, already in your podcast feed, your WWE Night of Champions Instant Analysis. On Monday, your AEW All In and TNA Slammiversary Instant Analysis. Tuesday, your WWE Week in Review show, along with a second look at Night of Champions. And then, of course, Thursday rounds out the week with NXT and AEW, as I just mentioned. So a bunch of performance-enhancing audio making its way into your ear holes. We hope you appreciate it. And if you do, you can remember here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Over head. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. We would really appreciate you supporting us, giving us some change to pay our bills and ensure that we keep this performance-enhancing audio going. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. On Twitter and Blue Sky, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. We will read those on any second look episodes that we do on YouTube. You can listen to the show. You can watch full-length video interviews. If you hit the link in our social media profiles, you can join our Slack channel. You can subscribe. You can do a lot more stuff. Be sure to find us at Getting Overcast. And lastly, please remember,
It's all about the fight.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Thanks to all of you who are listening to this Sunday night, first thing Monday morning. Hope you enjoyed this NXT Great American Bash instant analysis. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.